heavy hearts, we are broadcasting the passing of Officer Daniel Webster.
There were thousands of heavy hearts today in Albuquerque.
The community standing strong and side by side with APD and Officer Webster's family. First, remembering him at a public memorial service, and then honoring and saluting him and his dedication along a 17-mile procession route.
My heart was just calling me to do this.
I came out to support our fellow officers, especially whoever who falls in the line of duty.
Officer Webster taken away from his family, from the city he was trying to protect in a senseless shooting. Webster was a 20-year Army veteran. He was with APD for nearly 9 years and named Officer of the Year in 2013.
He served for the peace in other countries, and he came home and served honorably, as all of you in uniform do.
But today was about more than Dan Webster, the veteran and the officer.
It was about Dan Webster, the husband, father, and hero.
Dan, in one word, was a goober. He was a dork. He did not know how to dress, and he preferred granimals instead of me picking out his clothes for him.
Officer Daniel Webster, you leave this earth with the profound respect of your community, your police department, and your family. You will be missed and never forgotten.
We have team coverage tonight, from stories and memories of Officer Webster to how people who didn't even know him paid tribute.
The most powerful farewell came graveside this afternoon. Law enforcement officers from across the state and country came to pay their respects. Caleb James was there too.
We were honored to be able to stand right alongside Officer Webster's fellow officers as one by one men and women of law enforcement from around the state and around the country paid their respects to a fallen brother.
This is what farewell looks like. And sounds like. To know how it feels, though, you need only look at those stacks of crisp white gloves placed, each pair, by a fellow officer, by someone else who wears the badge, by someone else who toes that same thin blue line. That is how it feels to say farewell, like a piece of you goes missing. And for every piece of themselves these officers offered up to Daniel Webster at his final dispatch, Webster left a piece of himself with us too. A piece that reminds us to be kind, to be close, to protect and to serve the ones we love. Farewell can look a whole lot like change. A change Officer Webster would have been proud to enforce. Farewell, officer, from all of us. In Albuquerque, I'm Caleb James, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
A former interim APD chief says as soon as he learned about Officer Webster's passing, he knew he had to make the trip back to Albuquerque. Alan Banks traveled from the Austin area where he now works. It just shows the impact Webster had on people.
For this community to lose a man like that is a travesty. He's a tremendous officer, tremendous servant for this community, and he will be missed.
We also learned more about the person Officer Webster was from one of his pallbearers and close friends. Officer Luis Hernandez says it wouldn't be fair to say he was Webster's best friend because Webster had a lot of best friends.
He would take the shirt off his back and give it to you. That was just the person he was. He's not just a great loss as a friend, as a partner, but he's a huge loss as an officer to the city.
During Officer Webster's funeral today, his 3 adult daughters read Bible verses in his honor.
For your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us.
We know his career history and all of his accomplishments, but many of us don't know much about Officer Webster's personal side. Well, his wife painted a pretty good picture of the love of her life during today's memorial service, and Kasha Grigorchik picks up the story from there. Kasha.
Tessa, while there were many tears, there were also many laughs. Officer Webster's wife told us how funny he was, even calling him a goofball.
Dan, in one word, was a goober. He was a dork.
He loved his Harley, talk radio, and playing chess and war games on his phone.
Which, by the way, he acted like he was really completing a mission, and if I interrupted that and killed him in his game, he was very upset.
Officer Daniel Webster could answer any question about World War II history or the Civil War.
And he could always tell you who was the general of each battle and what the outcome was.
His wife says her husband hated getting dressed up, but he loved his garden and his guns.
Dan thought he was Batman. And in a way, he really was. He really loved his job and protecting people.
And he ended up here, in Albuquerque, protecting us.
He'd always wanted to be in Albuquerque because the department was always on cops.
In photos, Officer Webster was the one to always make a funny face, a silly pose.
Or trying to dance, which he could not do. But he always tried.
His sense of humor was evident in everything Officer Webster did,
including putting a small A with a circle on it on people's citations to remind him in court that person was not very nice.
And aside from just what a wonderful man he truly was,
Dan was a cop who had the highest integrity, and all of us now have a job to do. And it is up to all of the other law enforcement officers and deputies to continue his legacy.
Kasha Grigorchik, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
Officers from the New York City Police Department even came to Albuquerque for Officer Webster's memorial service. Those officers also joined APD in bidding farewell to the U.S. Honor Flag. It's an American flag that has traveled the country since 9/11, paying tribute to those who have lost their lives in the line of duty. It traveled about 700 miles from its previous stop in Kansas to get here.
As we have mentioned, a lot of people who didn't know Officer Webster still paid tribute to him today. And as Erica Zucco shows us, one of those people hopes we will all learn from his service.
People from all different walks of life came out to honor Officer Daniel Webster, and some of them felt a personal connection to the veteran and police officer. Long after the bagpipes stopped playing and most community members had poured into the memorial service for Officer Daniel Webster, Joseph Montano was still standing outside, reflecting.
My heart just feels for him. I mean, I'm so sad to hear he's lost.
Montano came this morning to show respect for Officer Webster and support for his family. Montano, like Webster, is a veteran and was humbled when he was asked to help honor the fallen public servant.
I was standing right here waiting for the procession to come in, waiting for them to bring him in. And a gentleman come up to me and he asked me if I was a veteran, and I said yes. And he said, "Would you like to hold a flag?" And I said, "Sure."
That moment and that feeling won't leave Montano anytime soon.
It was a great honor to me. Actually, it was really a great honor to stand there and show my support for Officer Webster and his family.
He's hoping no one else will forget Officer Webster's legacy either. He wants to see changes to make officers safer and more people living lives of service like Webster did. He says that he hopes we will learn from Officer Daniel Webster, from his service and from what happened to him, to make our community a better place. Reporting downtown, Erica Zucco, KOB Eyewitness News 4.
Beware, Albuquerque police are warning about a phone scam claiming to solicit donations for Officer Webster's family. One person who did not fall for it called us tonight, saying the scammer asked for addresses and other personal information. If you want to help Officer Webster's family, we have info on legitimate ways to do that. You'll find that information at KOB.com under 4 links.
From the first moments of that fateful night nearly 2 weeks ago, our community really stepped up in support.
From those who worked alongside Officer Webster, to those he might have met just once, to those who never met him at all.
He has such a good sense of someone that is doing wrong and he has a very good sense of justice and doing the right thing, that he is going to interact with that really bad, evil element more often than others, because he has no fear when it comes to it.
He's one of those people that wants to serve the community. He's one of the ones that's always out there making significant arrests.
They are always into something because they are passionate about their job. They love to help. They love to prevent as much stuff as they can.
There is hope, guys! To support the officer that has been shot, who's defending and serving our community for so many years, and his family. We'd wait in line for hours.
Police officers in this town really need our support a lot more than I think we're given. Well, I think it's great support. I think I wanted to do it, and I'm noticing them around town more and more.
He's just the ultimate hero. You talk about selfless acts and, dedicating your life to serving and protecting others in our community, and I really believe that that's what he lived for. That's what he did even prior to joining the service here.
Every time I finish, he said, "Damn, I look good. Dang, I look good. Thank you for making me look pretty," is what he'd always say. He was such a nice guy. The last thing I told him was just be careful out there, and he smirked and said, "Always am."
We ask all of you assembled here to join us in a moment of silence in honor of Albuquerque Police Officer Daniel Webster.
But it's also been a difficult time for all of us in law enforcement, and that's why behind me are representatives from every federal agency, representatives from the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff, thank you so much for being here, as well as the mayor.
Tough day for everyone. We know many of you have reached out to us and want to pay your respects to Officer Webster and his family.
And if you want to watch today's services again and read more about Officer Webster, just go to KOB.com.